Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala barakatuh. Gunjur Online TV viewers, welcome to another episode of our environmental show. And today my guest is Omar A.J Saho, native of Gunjur, Gambia, and currently residing in the US. Sorry for a late start. We have a small technical hitch. Um, but inshallah, Omar will make up for that. Today, our topic is total conservation and governance in the Gambia. But just how we're going to do it as normal. We know COVID-19 is back again with vengeance, and Gambia now included. We had a very easy 3 months. I think Senegal covered us. But as soon as Senegal started relaxing their internal regulations, numbers just went up exponentially in the Gambia. So, just a brief update about countries that are very close to the Gambia. Then I will let Omar go in this with his presentation. So far, since COVID-19 introduced itself to the world in December 2019, 16,777,754 people are infected with COVID-19 and 660,250 dead so far. Number of people who recovered from COVID-19 currently stands at 10,332,559. So that's a good number. That shows that still, if you have this virus, your chances of surviving it is 80% and above. Currently, number of people infected with COVID-19 stands at 5,784,944. And out of that 5,781,313, that is 99% of the people with active COVID-19 infections are in mild conditions. And when I say mild conditions, that's those asymptomatic patients who are not showing any sign of symptoms, but they are only proven positive because of the test. Number of people who are critically ill with COVID-19 stands at 66,631. And the top 10 most affected countries in the world, US and India are still leading the world with their daily updates. America registered 27,661 new cases past 24 hours and 631 deaths. Brazil recorded 12,425 new cases, 338 dead. India recorded 49,280 new cases, 776 dead, and Russia 5,395 and 150 dead. South Africa, which is among the top 5 now, the latest figures are not yet in, and Mexico 4,973 new cases and 332 dead. Countries very close to the Gambia, normally by the time of our presentation, their new numbers are not yet in, but I'm going to give you their total numbers and the countries that got their new numbers. I will give you that. Ivory Coast so far recorded 15,655 new cases so far. Senegal so far recorded 9,805 cases, and past 24 hours they recorded 41 new cases, just like Gambia as well. Gambia also recorded 41 new cases past 24 hours. The Guinea-Conakry so far registered 7,055 cases, and Mauritania 6,208. Mali so far recorded 2,520, and past 24 hours they recorded 7 new cases. Sierra Leone recorded 3 new cases. Their total stands at 1,786, and Guinea-Bissau so far recorded 1,954. Burkina Faso 1,100, and Gambia right now we have 326, and that number doubled past 4 days. If you look at Gambia 3 days ago it was only 170, but that rose to 326. Um, Total number of cases, new cases recorded past 24 hours stands at 141,806 and 3,329 dead. So this pandemic is showing no sign of slowing down. So that brings us to our topic today, which is today's monitoring and governance by Omar A.J Saho. Omar, first introduce yourself to the viewers of Gunjur TV online, then we can proceed.
Well, thank you so much, Brother Ahmed, for that brief introduction. My name is Omar A.J Saho from Gambia, from Gunjur village. I'm an environmentalist by training. That was where I have my first master's degree on, and now I have my second master's on international development, where I look at the intersectionality between, environmental conservation as well as development. What are some of the things that we need trying to strengthen in terms of policy and as well as program implementation towards developing our economies that are going to be like, implementing nature-based solutions towards, our programs and as well as policies dimensions. So looking at the multi-dimensional approach towards development. So today we're talking about, the conservation and governance of sea turtles in the Gambia, which was my part of my, previous master's degree thesis. I was in the Gambia in 2016, where I was collecting some data in the field. I work with community-based organizations and as well as, some government institutions in the Gambia about this particular theme. I am here today to present some of the, the concepts, the ideas, the findings of sea turtle conservation and governance in the Gambia today. Thank you all, and I'm happy to welcome you all.
Yeah, thank you very much. Omar, first, before you start your presentation, my question, why you choose this particular topic, sea turtle conservation and governance in the Gambia? Because these are some of the issues not many Gambians, into or know anything about it. Why do you choose this particular topic?
When I was doing my master's program in Taiwan between 2015 and 2017, which is like a 2-year program, I wanted to make a contribution into science. What are some of the scientific findings of environment and ecological resources in the Gambia? People have done extensive research about agriculture. People have done extensive research about fisheries. People have done a lot of research on health, on education, and all those stuff. And I'm like, why not I just going for like something very new that people in other countries like in Latin America, in Australia, in Asia, in Florida, in America here, people have done a good number of research on sea turtles. But the information about, the conservation and the governance regime in the Gambia is not well known scientifically. This is something that I can, at least contribute to science so that people can know about sea turtle conservation and governance in the Gambia. What are the policies? What are the local perceptions about sea turtles in the country? So that at least if there's any way we can try to diversify or restructure or reframe the conservation of this particular species, either promote a niche tourism program or creating a specific educational program in the country, that will be very good. At least we can conserve the species. We can also promote the recovery of their population and as well as put the Gambia on that world map so that the world can know that Gambia also got sea turtle nesting in their country. This is the population trajectory and these are the conservation efforts in the country. So that was the main motivation of me, involving in the sea turtle conservation and governance in the country.
Yeah, thank you very much. That is clear. So now you can proceed with the presentation. For the viewers, if you have a comment, you can either type it in or you can contact us WhatsApp +22094333419. This number will be shown on the screen once in a while. You can call anytime if you have a comment. Omar will stop and you can join in. Thank you.
Yes. So if you look at the presentation on the screen down there, it might be too narrow or too small for some viewers down there. I am looking at two major words here, which is like the conservation and as well as the governance aspect of that. The conservation looks at the ecology, the migration pattern, the nesting, location or the nesting, mechanisms of sea turtles. If you look at the governance approach, that looks at the policies, the acts we have in the country trying to protect this particular species. One dimension looking at the special, topics on the ecology of sea turtles, while on the other hand, I'm trying to go into like the policy dimension of it. So a brief snapshot about the introduction of sea turtles. They are an important ecological species which help to maintain a well-functioning marine ecosystem. When you talk about what do we mean a well-functioning marine ecosystem, we're looking at sea grasses here, we're looking at microalgae, we're looking at the sponges around coral reefs in a particular marine ecosystem. Sea turtles are very important because they are the ones that graze on sea grasses. They also graze on coral reef, the sponges around the coral reefs to help them to colonize and grow. So for that being the case, they are very important because if you don't have a huge thriving number of sea turtle population, they cannot help to regulate the growth and the productivity of sea grasses. So on that note, they are very important for us to protect them so that they can help improve the productivity of sea grasses and as well as maintain a well-functioning marine ecosystem. Globally, there are 7 species of sea turtles around the world, which are namely the leatherback, flatback, green turtle, hawksbill, loggerhead, Kemp's redley, and as well as olive Kemp's. So all of these 7, if you look at them, their body composition is differs. Their head, formation, in terms of their beak, is different. Their flippers is different. So this is where, as an ecologist or as a marine biologist, you can be able to differentiate which species is this other one. Either their body size, their flippers, and as well as their beak formation, their head characteristics, are some of the things that we can be able to identify this species. So these are the 7 species here. So the biggest among the sea turtle population, the leatherback. So the leatherback is the biggest one here, and then you can also have the green turtle. So in the Gambia, we are not that much fortunate enough because the highest population we have in the Gambia is the green turtle. That is the one nesting in the country from Bunyadu end to Kartong in the southern coastline of the Gambia. The most important thing that interests most of the ecologists or marine biologists, or let's say conservationists, to study about sea turtle is overall globally, the population is classified as either critically endangered, or they are endangered, or they are vulnerable. When we talk about critically endangered, these are species that are on the brink of extinction. They can go off at any time, whereby the future generation or even the present generation are not going to have any account of this species. If you talk about endangered, which means if we don't deploy heavy mechanisms of protecting the species, and long term, these species are going to go extinct. If you talk about vulnerable, which means, the entire human generation, the people here, conservationists, biologists, marine scientists, we have to do something. That's a costly concern about the population of this particular species. If we don't do any effort here, they're going to go on to the next stage, which is they're going to be endangered, which means the population is going to drastically decline. And if you don't do any effort at the next stage, that is going to push them to be like what you call the CE, which is critically endangered. So once they're at the level of critically endangered, there is no way, we can be able to thrive or bounce back in population. So based on that, if you look at it from hawksbill globally and then red scaly globally, their population are critically endangered. You look at green turtle, which is the highest population of sea turtle nesting in the Gambia, they are an endangered species. Loggerhead, leatherback, and olive redley, these are like endangered species. But if you look at IUCN website, IUCN is International Union of Nature Conservation. From 2016, they mentioned that flatback is one of the most interesting ones that they don't have any data on globally. So if you look at the statistics here about all the entire 7 species of sea turtles in the world, their population is declined globally. Those that's a major concern for marine biology, for scientists, for academicians, to at least nurture and advance the conservation effort of protecting this marine turtle species around the world, of which Gambia is not an exception. What are some of the major threats? If you talk about the major threats, we're talking about climate change, because if the CO2 concentration around the world increases, that disturbs the phenology, the gene type, the sex type of marine turtles. Because if we have over 31 degrees Celsius, or let's say 88 degrees Fahrenheit, that means like a marine turtle egg will be hatched, but it's going to be a female. If it goes below 28 degrees Celsius, or let's say 82 degrees Fahrenheit, then that marine turtle species, if it hatches, is going to be a male type. If the nest is disturbed because of human beings goes down there to excavate the egg, to eat the egg as either omelet or to fry it or to use for their own personal consumption, that also affects their population to thrive. If there's marine debris, we're talking about bottles, we're talking about plastic bags into the water, that can also suffocate the sea turtles because it's going to make them feel confused that, what, this is food, let me just go for it. Once they ingest that plastic bags that can also cause harm to them. If there's oil spill is not a major concern in the Gambian context, but global is a major concern in places like this in Nigeria, whereby they have to do like offshore inshore oil drilling. So if there's oil spillage in the water, that also affects their population, especially the hatchlings. Bycatch, places like the Gambia, is a major concern. You have fishing nets. If a fishing boat, either industrial fishing boat or let's say the local fishing boats in the country, they goes out into the water for fishing, they spill out their net. Sea turtles can get entangled into that fishing net and then they can die, or they can also sustain injuries. These are issues whereby me and my team in the Gambia in 2016, we were able to document some of those casualties along Gunju Sanyang area. There's also illegal poaching. If you go to Gunju, if you go down the Carton, traditionally we know people who are like heavily dependent on city roads. They go out at night, they hunt city roads, they kill them, come down into the local market and sell the meat of city road. Because people believe traditionally, if you eat the city road egg, it has omelette, you can be very strong enough. You can have that longevity, like long life, because marine turtles can live up about 80 years, up to 60 years or 70 years of age. So people have that traditional notion that, you know what, if you eat this species, if you eat the meat, you can have a good health and a long life. Interestingly enough, in 2017, some of the people who were killing city roads in the Gambia, they revealed to me that, you know what, a kilo of a city road in the Gambia can cost up to $200. Can you imagine? And then they have their special client, people who are interested in buying this meat. You kill a city road, before you get down into the home, you can call people early in the morning, they'll come and have their share from the meat. Boat strike. Fishing boat also can also strike these city roads, create injuries on their carapace. The carapace is the outer cover, the outer shell of the city road. Some major tourist destinations like in Africa as well as in Latin America and South America, people also decorate the outer cover. They can paint it, looks very nice, and then they can sell it to tourists. Light pollution. If city roads hatch, during the early stage, their infant stage, light is a major issue, especially if you have a huge hotel allocation along the beach or a huge, development initiative along the beach. What happens is the young ones, they get disoriented instead of going into the sea, because once they hatch, the waves of the Atlantic Ocean or it's whatsoever ocean or the sea where the nest is located, they can be able to determine that this is our location by the illumination, the light of the wave of the ocean. To say, they can go into the water and then goes back into their habitat down there for their grazing, for their development stage, and as well as to early maturity stage until they can come back to their main location. So the main threats that city road face around the world is climate change, nest disturbance, oil spill, marine debris, bycatch, illegal poaching. Dogs also can eat them. Birds of prey can also eat them, and as well as light pollution on the coastline. What are some of the interesting facts about them? Temperature affect their sex type. The higher the temperature, the more they're gonna be like females. The cooler the temperature, they produce, male sex. They can live up to 80 years of their age. They are now endangered because they have been hunted for their meat, for their eggs, and as well as if you process them, you can have oil out of them. They also, in some other part of the world, people get their cell as a souvenir for tourists. They can lay up to like more than 100 eggs per time. With a mature season, we can lay up to 100 eggs at one go. It takes about 50 days to 80 days for the eggs to hatch, either being a male or a female. Once they hatch, they just go direct into the Atlantic Ocean or Pacific Ocean or wheresoever they're going to be, let's say in Hawaii or another part of the world. During the first 5 to 20 years of their age, they spend in open oceans. This is where they do their foraging. When you talk about foraging, this is where they do their nursery stage. They feed on the coral reefs, on the sponges. They feed on the seaweed. They help the marine ecosystem to thrive, so that at least we can be able to, maintain a well-balanced ecosystem here. From 20 years to 30 years, this is their maturity stage. This is where they do their mating. This is where they can also say, now we are fully grown enough, we're adults. We cannot try to go back to our place where we are born to go and do the nesting side. And then this is the time whereby the young ones also can also mingle with the adults in the oceans. So once they are matured, the females will return back to their original place. Sea turtles are very, very interesting. because they have this geomagnetic composition in their brain. If they are hatched in Gunjur, they will have to come down to Gunjur to lay their eggs once they are matured. If they are hatched in Khartoum, they have to go down to Khartoum and lay their eggs. If they are hatched in Senegal, they have to go to the Senegalese coast and lay their eggs. So this is why it is very important for us to protect and conserve their nesting location, because once they are nesting location, they will come down ashore and just lay eggs just at the at the high tide of the ocean. Once there's a high tide, the eggs will emerge and go back into the water. So looking at the ecology here, looking at their phenology, their biology here, about the population going down, the threats they are facing, this will have caused a global concern for people to at least strengthen up, implement, formulate policies that will help us to protect their population. Across the world, globally, it is a major concern, be it in Costa Rica, be it in Australia, be it in Indonesia, and as well as Malaysia, and even in the Gambia. Because of what? The local people who live along the coastline, they depend on state road as their livelihood. Some of them depend on it as their food. Some of the people just want to kill or eat. Based on that, there are various international treaties. This is where you have the IUC and documenting, providing scientific data about the status of this species. However, even though we have the various organizations like the WWF, which is the World Wildlife Fund, you have the Global Environment Facility, you have the various governments, the various NGOs involving to conserve the species. But again, the population goes down. In many parts of the world, this is a major challenge where you have the people killing these species for their consumption. You have the government or you have international organizations trying to control their population. That's a major contention here. In the Gambia, unfortunately, the conservation efforts from the government actions remained largely unknown, in the simple sense that the information sharing, the education program is not well known in local communities. The fishing communities in Gunjur, in Khartoum, in Badakunku, in Brufut, in Bakau, most of the people does not know about the legal implications of conserving seasonal species. So this is the major fact about the Gambia. But again, various studies have been done. And then they reveal that from Bunyadu in Nyomi to Khartoum, the 70-kilometer coastline of the Gambia is a potential nesting location. Why? Because we have sand dunes. Sand dunes provide an ideal hotspot for sea turtles to do their nesting. Various studies conducted by the University of Exeter in the UK by a scientist called Linda Bucknett and as well as Lee. These are studies done in 2004 and as well as in 2019. They recommend that in the Gambia, we have 4 different species in the Gambia. That is the green turtle, leatherback, hawksbill, and loggerhead to be nested in the country. The highest majority of which are the green turtle, as I mentioned earlier. But they also find out that the highest concentration of sea turtle nesting in the Gambia is from Brufut to Khartoum. Simply, if you look at Brufut, off the certain hotel, all the way down to Khartoum, there's less tourist infrastructure around that area. There's less foot traffic around that area. And you also have the Tangier Island, the small island of Tangier. This also provides a very nice nesting location for sea turtles. So this is why we have the highest concentration of sea turtle nesting locations from Brufut to Khartoum area, simply because of less tourist development around that area. When I was doing my study, we do a map out. We realized that most of the hotels in the Gambia, if you look at that from Banjul all the way to Senegambia, this is where I have most of the hotel. During this peak season in the Gambia, from October all the way down to April, May in the Gambia, we have a lot of tourists around that area. You have a lot of light pollution around that area. You have a lot of fishing activities around that area. So that affects the migratory pattern, the activity of settlers around that area. But if they come down to Tangier area, going down towards Khartoum, there is less hotel allocation around the beach. Now, simply, you realize that the Gambia also have mapped out that area as a potential ecotourism development area. This is why we have a highest concentration from Brufut to Tangier, to Khartoum area, sorry. Some people will be interested to look at some of these things here. So this is basically about their pattern of migration and as well as their nesting activity here. The first one, where you have the young girl down there, this is just a false call attempt, FCA, where a signal will come offshore, it will come all the way outside, but it's not going to do any nesting, it will go back into the water. You have the nesting track also, they will come all the way straight into the sandy area, excavate the sand, lay their egg, and go back. The other one is like we can say, okay, you know what, maybe they are playing or they have just come for basking. They can come out and have what they call the full scroll U-turn. They come all the way to the shoreline and go back into the ocean. So this dark image here is a picture captured by a small community-based organization in Khartoum called SOS the Gambia. They captured an image around nighttime in the Gambia when a matured green turtle was nesting in the Gambia, and then they shared the picture with me in 2017. So that one is a green turtle nesting there at night.
Yeah, Omar, don't you think that's just like a camouflage, just to make sure the chances of praise, um, just actually to camouflage or bamboozle, the nest tips
That's quite true,
that
yes. They
falls.
can also come down to camouflage the situation,
Mm,
also monitor,
yeah.
inspect is there any potential threat around this area or not.
Mm.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
So
Mm,
usually you can have these trails early in the morning because
mm,
we do the monitoring of the coastline in 3 shifts in the country. We'll go from 8
yeah.
p.m. to 12 o'clock, 12 o'clock to 4 a.m. in the morning, and 4 a.m. in the morning to night time. Because this is the time where by at the rainy season in the Gambia, there's mostly high tide at the ocean. And when there's high tide, that's the time they'll come offshore to lay their eggs. So people will also wonder about predation. What are the major challenges of this population? The major challenge is human consumption because people are the ones that are killing them, consuming them, either for their personal own gain or for the monetary incentive that they can have from killing the species. But apart from the human beings, we also have the Nile mottled lizard. These are the local name we call the kundukana. Also kill the species,
Yeah.
the young ones. They also
Mm.
escapade eggs because one mottled lizard, one kundukana can eat over 100 eggs at one go. We also have the coast crabs. These are the yellowish crabs we have at the beach that nobody even cares about them. They are not a major challenge because what happens is once the young ones hatch from their nest, they emerge. The coast crabs can just come use their two antennas, clip them and kill them instantly. So this is a major challenge we have in Gunju, in the Gambia, and as well as other countries that have a highest population of coast crabs on their beach. In the Gambia also we have the soldier ants and then the red ants. Those ones also, if the nest is located in a vegetated area, let's say, like in the Gambia, before the sun man is to become a major challenge, most of the sandlands in the Gambia, they have grasses around them. And then, those grasses, we also have soldier ants, we have the red ants. They can emerge from their nest and then go and attack the hatchlings, and then allowing them to kill, to die like that. So that's are the major challenges in terms of like predation, the people that feed on them, Nile mottled lizard, coast crabs, and then they also get attacked by soldier ant and red ants. When we are when I was doing my study in the Gambia, this is some of the things we collected along the coastline. There's the highest evidence of dead bodies along Gunjur Beach, Khartoum Beach, and also Sanyam Beach. We find the skulls. We also find their skeletal remains along the coastline. We have to go early in the morning to be able to document some of these remains along the beach line, along the beach side. If you look at the central focus of our discussion today, we want to look at what are the current policies, the laws, the governance framework of civil conservation in the Gambia. When we talk about that one, in the Gambia, according to the Gambian laws, we don't have a specific law that say, this law is specifically designed, implemented, and directed towards conserving territories. No. They are over the overarching principles we have in the Gambia, the overarching laws, the governance laws we have in the Gambia. We talk about the Wildlife Biodiversity Act in the Gambia. This is where we have all those species we have in the country to be conserved in the Gambia. We have the government involved, NGOs taking their part, community-based organizations are also involved. So we want to look at the interaction of all these organizations here in a snapshot, in a quick way. So if you look at the conservation effort, we are looking at both the habitat. The habitat is where do they live? This is the marine ecosystem. We are looking at the species because this is where the conservation approach goes into. The Gambia want to protect the entire shoreline of the country. We want to protect and conserve the 300 nautical miles of the country, or let's say over 2,000 nautical miles of the Gambian Ocean, the Gambian Sea. We want to also protect the species in that water, which is the cetacean species, which is also the sea turtles, the whales, the dolphins, and as well as the fish we have in the ocean. So based on that one, we are looking at things from an entire map of the marine ecosystem here. So based on that, these are some of the laws. We want to look at things from a governance system approach. What are some of the governance structures we have in the country in terms of departments? Who are the actors involved? So this is the main framework we usually use when we want to examine, assess a marine conservation approach, or let's say a common pool resource, something that belongs to the entire community, something that belongs to the entire country. We want to look at who are the various government departments that set rules towards conserving this species. Who are the various partners involved? And what sort of action do they participate in terms of how that interaction to protect and conserve the species here? How is the entire resource system? When you talk about the resource system, we're talking about, let's say, the marine ecosystem, the terrestrial ecosystem, the forest park here. How is this particular resource unit? And here we are talking about the CETA has the RU, the resource unit. So based on that, at that time, I was working with the University of Indiana to be able to map out and then do that focus examination of the Gambia state conservation in the country. So these are the various dynamics we have here. I have the various variables, the government department, the NGOs, the network structure they have, what are some of the rules they have, how is the constitution of the country trying to protect this species. The actors are, how is the history of killing this species? Where do they kill them? What is their knowledge about killing this species? What are some of the economic incentives they have from killing this species here? In the Gambia, we have the Department of Parks and Wildlife, the Department of Fisheries. They have the Wildlife Act protecting the species here. You have the local people killing the species in Badakonku, in Kato, in Sanya, in Gunjur, in other part of the country. They kill to have money out of that one. But you have, like before, double efforts in the Gambia, giving the financial aid to protect sea turtle species in the country. This is the economic value. You have people who are traveling down the Gambia, the Den Sandeli Eco Retreat in the country, and as well as other lodges in the country who are interested in volunteering towards conserving this species. So you look at that dynamics, we look at the second tier of the various agents who are involved in conserving the species here. So based on that one, we look at it from a chronological order. In 1968, the Gambia established the conservation unit in the Gambia by then Salvador Karaba Jawara. So the conservation unit was the one who was manned with the responsibility to protect the remaining fauna and flora of the country. This is where you have the state rules, this is where you have the wildlife, this is where you have the national parks of the Gambia, and as well as the bird life in the Gambia. In 1977, they turned the unit and established the former Banjul Declaration. That entails conserving the entire wildlife species in the Gambia. In 1994, they established the Department of Parks and Wildlife in the Gambia, which had a national mandate and the oversight responsibility to protect the entire natural resource of the Gambia in terms of ecology aspect. In 1999, they have what you call the Gambia Wildlife and Biodiversity Regulation was enacted in 1999, which further enforced and strengthened the protection measures against all forms of wildlife exploitation in the Gambia. In the same 1999, the Gambia became a party to the Abidjan Convention. The Abidjan Convention includes countries like Gambia, Senegal, Nigeria, and Mauritania, whereby the country that share the same maritime resources can have this participatory governance approach of protecting this species. So that was the Abidjan Convention in 1999. This also have a component to look at not only several species, but if you talk about the fish population, how do we give out the fish regulation? How do we control pollution, emission in our coastlines? In 2003, the Wildlife Act of 1997 was revised and improved, giving an extensive mandate towards the entire marine ecosystem, the ecology of species we have in the Gambia. In 2004, that was the first time, can you imagine, from 1965, it was in 2004 that the Gambia conducted the first ever national survey looking at the distribution and the nesting location of settlements in the Gambia. This was done by staff from the Department of Parks and Wildlife in the Gambia in collaboration with a university in the Gambia called University of Esther. They report that, Gambia have marine turtles. They talk about their nesting activity along the coast of the Gambia. They talk about their population declined, the trend in which the population was declining. They talk about their general ecology of where are the potential nesting locations, what are the issues of human consumption. In 2005 to 2008, the Gambia was able to have a project called the ICAM-1. The ICAM was the Integrated Coastal and Marine Biodiversity Management Project. National Environment Agency was involved. The Department of Parks and Wildlife was involved. So this was a focal target to advance the conservation of marine turtles in the Gambia. This was where Badr the JPAD had the funding. This was the main project called the ICAM project. It was where they have, they assigned portion of that particular assignment to JPAD in Gunjur, which is the Gunjur Environmental and Development Group. In 2009 to 2011, they have the phase 2 of the ICAM project. They deal with the ecology, the surveys, and all of those stuff, and then they map out the findings that they have made. They submit the report to Parks and Wildlife. So between 2011 to 2014, there was no major work in the country towards protecting settlers in the Gambia. In 2014, Sandel Eco Retreat, which is small eco lodge in Khartoum, they were able to secure a fund through the British High Commissioner to establish a small hatchery on the beach, which they have done to help establish the hatchery, do a beach survey. So they survey from Berekundu in Khartoum to Gunjur. They have the Gunjur team, which is Lamin Keita, Suleiman Jabang, Ndey Fatu, and as well as other folks, Lamin Jasi and other people. They also have people like, Al Husseini, Simon Jiba, and all the other people in Khartoum who are like the one station in Khartoum. So they have that 2 teams to patrol and monitor the Gambian coastline. So most of the people who are involved, they were doing that on a voluntary basis. So the governance system in the Gambia was basically the Department of Parks and Wildlife Management in the Gambia are the ones taking care of civil conservation in the Gambia. But they are not doing it alone. We have CBOs like the Federal SOS the Gambia, Sandel Eco Retreat, GPAD, Gunjur Environmental Concern Group, and as well as Sadauda Karaba Jawara, who we have a huge tribute to for having that foresight vision of protecting the Gambia's remaining fauna and flora. If you talk about the resource system here, as I mentioned about the framework before, we are talking about the nesting location of systems in the Gambia. They are migrated pattern and the habitat. They migrate the entire coast of the Gambia from Gambia all the way to Cape Verde to the coast of Guinea-Bissau, because in West Africa, Guinea-Bissau have the highest density of nesting location along the west coast of the West African marine ecoregion. So the interactions are in the Gambia, we have the ANRC, which is the Agriculture and Natural Resource Working Ad Hoc Committee, having all this Department of Fisheries, National Environment Agency, Department of Parks and Wildlife. Every 3 months, they conduct a meeting to have a policy dialogue, which comprises of like the top government officials in the country to look at issues affecting the marine ecoregion in the Gambia and as well as the marine resources of the country. How they give fishing license, the fishing regulations, how is the population density or the population dynamics or the demography of some of the species in the country. So this is the flow chart of how things run in the country. This is a rough sketch here. So in this rough sketch, you have the Global Environment Facility providing the funding to Gambia government, and also we have the DENT, WWF, which is World Wildlife Fund, was also providing funding to the Gambia government to advance, nurture, and promote conservation in the country. At national level, we have Department of Parks and Wildlife Management, National Environment Agency, Department of Fisheries and Water Resources. They have what we call the Coastal and Marine Environment Working Group. So this is like the interministerial or the interdepartmental working group between the various agencies in the Gambia. At community level, we have Gunjur Environmental Personal Development Group, Federal SOS the Gambia, Sunday Eco Retreat, and then some of the other CBOs located in the country that are also involved in protecting these species. At Department of Parks and Wildlife end, they do a zoning. Zone 6 is Khartoum, Zone 5 is Gunjur, and I think Zone 4 is where you have the Tanye, and whereby some of their work, the community wardens are the one patrolling that beach. For research, you have University of Exeter and University of Brighton also involved in protecting sea turtles in the Gambia. For the local network structure at Gunjur, we have some of these agencies that I mentioned, JPAD, Environmental Concern Group, Footstep Ecology was at one time involved. You have the Gunjur Development Committee. They also were the ones supporting Badara Mbakau and as well as Buwa Ture of Gunjur to work as conservation officers. At Khartoum, NF Sandere, you have the Khartoum Association for Responsible Tourism. We are also involved. Khartoum have a very strong network called the People's Coast. The People's Coast is a network of all the coastal communities in the Gambia and as well as in Senegal. They conduct meetings previously to see how best the coastal communities in the Gambia, in Gunjur, in Khartoum, in Sanya, as well as those in Kafunti, in Abenna, in Nyafurang, and in Kataki area can also all come together to have dialogue, and some sort of awareness programs and sensitization of how best they can protect the species. So about the conservation action. If you talk about, what having the government, having the CBOs, having the funding, what is going on here? We have all these players, we have all these actors involved in seeing how best they can bounce back the population of cereals. This is why we have hatcheries established in Gunjur. This is why we have hatcheries established in Karton. This is why we have a community-based sensitization program in Sambuyang, in Gunjur, in Karton, in Abenna, in Yafro, and in Kataki area. Because we want to see that, in Gambia and as well as in Senegambia region as a whole, we are able to bounce back the population of several species in those regions. So this is me and Lamin Keda down there, and as well as Suleiman Jabang measuring a data tool, because one of the whether an adult, we also do an autopsy of a particular species once we found along the beach. What is the diameter? What is the centimeter size, the body size, the major cause of the death? We also count the eggs, excavate the nest site, take them to the hatchery. So these are the young ones at the far right-hand side of the slide here. So between 2014 to 2016, the conservation efforts in Gunjur and Karton area were able to protect over 20,000. We are able to collect over 30,000 eggs in the over 12,000 eggs in the field. And over all that 12,000 eggs in the field, it was less than 10,000 eggs that survived. So over 2,000 all failed. So looking at the ones that survived also, a high majority of them also have to die along the way because of bird strike and as well as the habitat destruction and as well as other anthropogenic issues that they face along the way. Based on the awareness program, based on the sensitization, based on the involvement of the local parties in these villages in the Gambia and as well as in Senegambia area, in Senegal also, we have local people who were then carrying settlers in this area. They tend to become conservationists because their knowledge is very, very important. Their knowledge is also very valuable. This is one guy from Karton who was once a turtle hunter. Now, based on the conservation efforts we have in the country, he turned to become somebody to offer his expert knowledge about the nesting location. As I mentioned earlier, sea turtles are very, very unique because they have this geomagnetic, GPS location of where they were born, where their parents lay their eggs, and where they emerge as husbands. So turtle hunters in the Gambia, they know about all this location. They can tell if you go to location A, B, C, at this time of the night, at this time of the year, you should be able to find a sea turtle. So based on raising the awareness about the importance of protecting this species for their own benefit, because once tourists are coming down to the Gambia to involve in conservation, we can protect this species. We can hire them to become turtle guides. So this guy was somewhat passionate and he was able to join the team in Karton to offer his expert knowledge to conserve this turtle species. So this is one of the economic incentives. If you want to promote conservation, you don't only tell people, stop deforestation, stop killing sea turtles, stop doing overfishing. But what are some of the economic incentives? What are some of the motivations that you can offer them as an alternative form of income generation, as an alternative form of livelihood mechanisms? So entirely, the West African region, Gambia, Senegal, and all the countries in West Africa, they have various socio-political as well as economic challenges. People are very poor. We don't have strong political will that can provide the funding for institutions to be able to run, monitor, patrol, implement their policies. We don't have the political, we don't have strong institutional backing to be able to do all these kind of challenges down there. So these are major impediments that can help restore, recover, and as well as rejuvenate the species of marine turtles in the Gambia. There is also less scientific knowledge in terms of people who are involved in protecting the species here. People does not have that much knowledge about, the local people who are involved in harvesting the young ones and adults in the Gambia. Population decline is a major concern because people in Gunjur, in Karton, and other part of the country are killing the species even without knowing it. Habitat destruction. People who are in the Gambia knows that sand mining is a heavy issue in Sanya, in Gunjur, in Badakungu at that time. If we happen to mine the entire coastline, it's going to be a major challenge of settlers coming offshore to lay their eggs. If you have a lot of adult allocation on the beach, this is going to disorient the young ones. Instead of going down into the water, they will come shoreline to be able to idle around that area. Birds of prey can get in contact with them. They can get eaten by the dogs. People can also kill them. They can also get stamped up by people who are along the beach side. So in that regard, we need to look at the poor management and the governance approach we have in the Gambia. So which means the Gambia has to review the policies that we are trying to implement in the Gambia, in terms of the way we control our shoreline. We have the Gambia Tourism Development Plan going on down there. We have the Parks and Wildlife biodiversity act in the country. We have the fisheries regulation. All of these are like disjointed. They are not well connected. How do we ensure we have that strong policy synergies? We have that strong policy integration, whereby all the conservation laws in the Gambia, all the conservation policies in the Gambia can be directed not only to protect citizens in the Gambia, but also the entire marine resource of the country. Because if there's a policy lapses, if there's a weak policy implementation, that is going to affect the long-term population growth of the marine resources we have in the Gambia. So which means we need to promote the sustainable use of natural resources in the Gambia. We need to look at what are some of the licenses we have, we give the piece of folks, and how do we ensure that regulation and monitoring in the Gambia. We need to also ensure that there's a strong management of the eggs. We have nesting locations in Gunjur and Khartoum and have the nest in those areas too. We need to look at the chemistry not to interfere with the incubation period of the hatcheries in those two villages. The Gambia government and the local communities also need to forge a strong collaboration to see how best they can address the issue of habitat degradation in the Gambia. Potentially, we're talking about sand mining in these particular areas too. How to at least regulate sand mining in Gunjur, Khartoum, Badakungan, as well as other parts of the country that are experiencing that habitat degradation. We need to also incorporate. Gambia is very funny. We have people who have a strong knowledge about this species, be it a tree, they know about the medicinal value of trees, they know about the fish resources in the Gambia, they know about marine turtles in the Gambia. But hardly once we are doing our policy formulation, once we are trying to draft our policies, once we are trying to develop certain kind of policies, we involve the people in the communities. We always assume that they are illiterate, they didn't go to school, they have no idea about what we are doing. We only rely predominantly on the scientific knowledge. These are the people who have gone down to the formal education system in our country, who have went down through our school system. We perceive that they are the ones who are highly educated, they are the eldest in the country, and they have knowledge about the species, which is not always the case. When I was doing my research in the Gambia, there was data absence. I don't have most of the data, but once I was able to collect some few folks in Gunjur and Karo and Sanya, I was able to interview them. These people are somewhat rich with knowledge. So in the Gambia, if you want to promote conservation, we have to incorporate traditional ecological knowledge. We have to go down to the local people in Gunjur, in Karo, in Sanyang, in Badakunku, in Nyomi, in Kiang. Talk to them. What are their knowledge about the resources we have in the country? Being the forest resource, being the marine resource, being like the trees, and as well as other species we have in the Gambia too. We need to also advance sub-regional collaboration and participation, which means the Gambia, Guinea-Bissau, Guinea-Conakry, Mauritania, we need to have a robust policy integration. We need to have a robust partnership. We need to have this institutional working dynamics going on down there. Gambia cannot control their sea while Senegal open their sea for fishing. Gambia cannot open their ocean while Senegal close their sea. This is the issue we have during the nesting period in the country. Between July, August, September, October, and November, this is the highest time for all the seafood species nesting along the coast of the Gambia, they will emerge. This is the same time whereby the fish population also will lay their eggs. So once the Gambia open their sea, Senegal close their water, most of the time, if there is a heavy fishing traffic in the Gambian water, that is going to affect not only the seafood population, but also the fishing population in the fish population in the Gambia. So on that note, there's supposed to be a strong policy dialogue between the various regional bodies involved in this particular resource conservation. What the Gambia government can also do is the Department of Tourism and the Ministry of Tourism and Culture in the Gambia, through the Gambia Tourism Board, they can work with various community-based organizations in the Gambia to promote a niche tourism program in the Gambia called, let's say, Go Experience Seafood Pamba Watching in the Gambia. If you go to Costa Rica, Florida, Barbados, Trinidad, and as well as in Puerto Rico, you have people who are involved in protecting the species down there. On that regard, I think it's a major thing that if we want people to stop killing this species, if we want to create more awareness about this species in the country, we have to ensure that people know the economic value, the economic incentive attached towards protecting the species. On that regard, that's the brief note about what we have for you today. If you have any questions now, we can discuss about those ones too. Hello, brother Ahmed. So,
Yeah, yeah.
yes,
Thank you very much, Omar, for that brilliant presentation. Sorry about that disruption, guys. That's Omar's end of Omar's presentation to sea turtle conservation and governance. Yeah, Omar. In fact, wow, this is encouraging because I don't know the success rate of the amount of eggs you guys managed to pick in 2014. So this is something worth trying. It can be a source of even employment. Even though it is going to be seasonal. 83% success rate if you have eggs, and also 12,000. I think that's over 12 months, right? Or one season or
the
2 seasons.
system about from July to
Okay.
September. So basically,
12
within
to September.
yes.
Yeah.
So
So,
I have some new data, some new statistics. These are the ones that I just received from the Gambia recently. There was a
mhm.
huge success between 2018 and 2019. Most of the folks in
Okay.
Gunjur, you talk about Suleiman Jab and Defatu and then Lamin Kida, they
Yeah.
were able to have employment with tax and wildlife management because of their
Yeah.
involvement in protecting the species.
Yes.
So more
And
than
now
40
once.
Shepard was also very active in Gunjur at that time. They were able to have
Mm,
funding because the ICAM project was specifically designed to protect and
mm.
conserve the seasonal species in the country.
Okay, I got it.
Sandeli was also able to at least employ some, even some sort of a temporal employment to some folks in Khartoum because they want
Yeah.
to recover and restore the seasonal
Mm,
population in Khartoum end. A lot of students we are coming from University of Brighton in the UK, from other universities in Europe, to come on and
mm,
get involved to volunteer in conserving the species. So there's a huge
mm,
potential for job employment, job creation if Gambia is
mm,
able to
mm,
strengthen the conservation of the species.
mm, mm. Yeah, that's is worth trying. And also, what I'm going to ask you, recent years, there are
Yes.
lots of death totals floating, between Gunjur and Katong. Even 2 days ago, there was one. I even tweet this from Mustafa. I retweeted from Mustafa's tweet. What do you
Yeah.
think is responsible of this?
Well, I'll just go down to one conclusion down there. That conclusion
Mm-mm.
will be the heavy fishing traffic around that area. If you look at all these fish mills in the country, where are they located now?
Okay.
They are located in Sanya, in Gunjur, and Khartoum.
Mm,
We are talking about both
mm,
strikes. If fishing boats are
mm.
going offshore to come down with their daily catch, they can't just
Yeah.
strike, hit
Mm,
people at their back. That one will die.
mm,
People can also get entangled into the fishing net.
mm,
And sometimes some fishermen will even kill them. They'll just hit them once it gets entangled in their fishing net instead of safely
mm,
releasing them.
mm,
In some part of the world, that's what we call TED. This is
mm.
total exclude devices. You put them in
Yeah.
this interest net. Once a turtle enters into that one, it will exclude the turtle out of the net.
Okay.
Are we trying to raise awareness about those kind of techniques, whereby
Mm,
if you get entangled in the fishing net, this is how you can safely,
mm.
at least expel that turtle out of the fishing net.
Okay. Right. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, thank you very much. I will see who will present next. If there is nobody, I probably will present about our struggle against this fish meal. Thank you very much. It's
So
well presented, and
a final conclusion will be a recommendation, a policy recommendation will be the Department of Parks and
okay.
Wildlife in the Gambia, in collaboration with the
Mm,
Ministry of Justice and as well as NEA in the Gambia, they
mm,
should work on establishing a marine research center in the country. The Marine
yeah.
Research Center will not only establish some scientific baseline data of some of the
Mm,
fisheries stock we have in the country or some of the marine turtle population we have in the Gambia, but it will also provide an avenue for employment for Gambian youth or Gambian people.
mm,
It will also
mm,
provide at least some baseline scientific data for Gambian people who are out there
mm,
studying about, let's say, the
mm,
natural resources we have in the country. And then
mm,
some tourists who are interested in going to the Gambia, they will not only now have the opportunity of going for bird watching in the country or going only for some sort of a safari experience in the Gambia, but they can go down to that
mm,
nature experience site. If you go down to Taiwan, they have a
mm,
marine research center that's open to the public. You go
mm,
down to Florida, they have the
mm,
same. You go down to Hawaii, you go down to Costa Rica. People are now promoting an alternative form of livelihood for their citizens. So it is very, very sad. If you look at Gambia, we say, you know what, our economy depends on agriculture, fisheries, and tourism. But what are we doing trying to sustain those industries? What are the long-term sustainability policies that we need to implement to protect and conserve those resources? Yes, in Abuko Nature Reserve, we have the Darwin Biodiversity Research Center in Abuko. But if it goes down to the University of the Gambia, how many curriculum do we have for Gambia University students to go into the field, go in down there and then do some sort of a field ecology examination about some of the species? Most of the time, you have to study outside to be able to at least better understand the dynamics of this population density or the population, growth or the trend of this species. And how are we trying to at least map out, have a policy plan that they can, at least every few years, every 4 years, or 10 years, we'll be able to engage Gambian people to become conservationists. We'll be able to sustain some of the youth who are unemployed, but they have some understanding about this species to be employed. So the policy responsibility will be, or the policy recommendation will be, let's establish a marine research center in the country. It can be in Sanya, it can be in Gunju, it can be in Karton, for Gambian folks who want to learn about the fisheries sector, who want to understand about the conservation approach of the Gambia's marine ecosystem in the country.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and I think that research center should include a data management center where we can keep data of all these activities.
Yes,
that's brilliant.
And then even like, let's say, an aquarium. We don't have an aquarium in the Gambia. We talk about the fish in the country. You can have some live fish, have an aquarium in the country, keep at least a juvenile one, or some of the settlers that might have a disease, or maybe they might have some injuries. You keep them down there to help them nurse them, to give them the nursing that they need, the medical treatment they need. Keep certain kind of live fish or shrimps, or let's say lobster population in that aquarium. Gambian people are gonna come. People are gonna come from anywhere in the country to go and pay admission fees. We have museums in the country, but in any advanced or progressive developing countries, they ensure at least they have an aquarium whereby you can also increase the awareness of the population. People can know about the species because they are very important. If you don't have a knowledge or an understanding about the particular resources, it's gonna be very hard for you to have an interest about protecting the resources. The reason why you and me are so much passionate about environment is we understand both the scientific importance of that. We also understand the economic value of it. That's why we are so much passionate about conserving these resources.
Yeah, thank you very much. Once again, to our viewers, please share this video so it can get to as many people as possible. Omar, once again, thank you very much for this brilliant presentation. Hope to see you here again on Tuesday, inshallah, when we agree on the topic. I'll keep you notified. Thank you.
No problem. Thank you so much.
It's okay, bye-bye.
Nande ati kodi di go ba for